This podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be construed as investment, tax, or legal advice. Any examples or frameworks discussed are general in nature and may not be suitable for all investors. All investing involves risk, including the possible loss of principal. Past experiences and planning approaches do not guarantee future results. I've been thinking a lot about how a lot of people say that if you're a great investor, that you must be really smart or shrewd or even just a genius. And I don't think that's necessarily the case. I've worked with plenty of people who are smart, but I don't think that's necessarily why they did well. I think the fact that they are disciplined and have emotional restraint, some stability, and one really important thing is the willingness to accept that you don't know everything. Basically, you could be a genius, but if you can't control your emotions, then that's really not going to help you succeed. So this applies to a lot of clients of mine. One in particular jumps out to me just because they've done so well for themselves, but they've said about themselves that they don't really know what they're doing. And they've done it on their own for such a long time. And if you saw what their balance sheet looks like, you'd be like, of course you know what you're doing. They don't feel that way. They feel like they've got, a high level understanding of how investing works, but not a deep understanding. I think most people would say that they're pretty successful. All they really did was spend time in the market. They didn't try to outsmart it. They simply took advantage of workplace retirement plans and it didn't necessarily earn a ton of money from their human capital, but just were super diligent about saving and reinvesting. And their investment strategy basically went off in the background, didn't try to quote unquote do something with their investments constantly. They just let it be. Kind of like if you like to cook, you want to put a good sear on a steak or a piece of chicken. You just got to put it in the pan and let it do its thing. It's not a perfect metaphor, but if you're constantly touching it, you're just not going to get that result that you're looking for. The other interesting thing with them is they stuck with what some people might call boring investments. It's all publicly traded investments, no real estate other than their primary residence, no private placements, no operating business. I'm not trying to say that one is better than the other. You can find success. You might find failure in any of those options. But the point is that they did it in a way that didn't require a lot of complexity. And by keeping it simple, it made it really easy for them to succeed. And they didn't do it with my help for a large portion of their lives. I only came in when things got to be a little more challenging planning wise. And they needed some oversight with that. And as your wealth accumulates, things do get a little more challenging. There can be some temptation to want to bring in complexity for complexity's sake. Maybe someone around you is saying how they've done well in a certain area of investing and now you want to get in on that. But if what you're doing has already worked well and there's no compelling strategic reason for why you want to be more complex, then it's pretty important to sit and think like, why are you actually pursuing something more than what you've already done? So instead of asking what's the most sophisticated strategy available, I would ask, what strategy can I stick with consistently through good times and bad? And there's no right or wrong answer. You might find that your answer even involves a great deal of sophistication. That might work for you. You can't let someone else answer this question for you. But it really boils down to one point. Investing in complex illiquid alternatives can be really beneficial. And there's a lot of wealthy families that do it, but it's not an absolute requirement for success.